Good afternoon everybody, I hope you enjoyed your lunch. This Did You Know section is kind of inspired from feedback from customers that basically, as releases are released, said that they didn't manage to get to look at the change logs and weren't aware of all the features that were going in. So what we did was we took some of the different features, useful features within the product, and we have our team here who are going to demonstrate that. So, I suppose, did you know that Site Manager has on functionality? I'm finding that out at the moment because I'm currently, trying to get up to speed on what's going on in the company, all the features that it has and all the rest. So many people may not be aware of a lot of the functionality that's there. They're using it specifically for areas that they need it for, and if they were more aware of areas that maybe other customers are using for, they might actually use them. So it's basically to demonstrate some nice features within Site Manager and showcase them by the Channel 4 staff. The best presentation will get a prize, so we're counting on everybody here to actually help to decide who has the best presentation. I presume everybody got a pack. Within your pack there's a red card and a green card. If you like the presentation, hold up your green card, and if you don't like it so much, hold up your red card. If you don't have a red or green card, there's ones going around here, so if you want to just shout or hold up your hand, somebody can come to you with the cards. So be gentle. I suppose there's going to be a prize for the best person. So the way we're going to do this, the format we're going to do is kind of like, Sean will kill me for saying this, but a catwalk style approach. So we bring them up one by one to do the presentation. While not all of them are professional models, they're all model employees. So first up is Daniel Keane, and he's professional services, and he's a web developer, and he's going to demonstrate navigation objects.
If I get 3 X's, do I get 4? Let's be short and sweet. I'm going to talk to you very quickly today about navigation objects. I'm going to make my bad joke first and say they're nothing to do with sailing. But they're a feature that's been in Site Manager from the very beginning, and they've had a lot of changes recently, but I don't think a lot of people know exactly what some of the more recent ones do. And there's a small factor of fear about them and how exactly they work. And I just want to talk to you today about 2 of my favourite navigation objects. And those 2 I'll be looking at today are the keyword navigation objects and keyword search and pagination, and exactly what they do. So in order to keep it real, I'm going to use a real live website that's only live in a couple of weeks, show you what it does for them, what was put in place, and potentially some of the tweaks that they're going to use in future to help the website get content reuse all over the site and use it more efficiently. So traditionally, I think when navigation objects come out first, we were mostly using things like related content. And related content was mostly used to bring content from one part of the site or one part of Site Manager in general into another place. So for example, right-hand side content or footer content all over the place. And what happened recently is that a number of clients have come forward with requirements for more complicated navigation objects. And the first one that we're going to look at today is something called keyword search. And the main person, or the main driver behind this initially was UNAIDS. And their idea was that they have all this content. Yes, we can use related content to use it in parts of the site, but we want to be able to tag it as specific types of content. So you can imagine the scenario of them, they have different subsections they want to tag it as, but also, for example, in a university, you might want to tag it as a student-style event, you might want to tag it as an academic-style news story. So you can put a certain category against your particular type of content. And then in particular other parts of the site, you can pull that content out based on the search criteria that you supply. There are other sites who've used it since, such as Alverno, Portsmouth, and Northwestern Health Sciences, and that's who we're going to be looking at today. So this is just two examples of where they used keyword search within their site. As you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, they've tagged particular news stories under 4 main types of headings. So that's on campus, in the community, and professional research news. So what happens is within Site Manager, they take a template element which then will get used during publish to pull those news stories into these 4 categories. Another use that they've used it for, as you can see on the bottom left-hand side of the screen, is that we have little mini calendars throughout the site that have been tagged as particular types of events. So in this case, it's an academic event, and on the academic page, only those academic events from the event section get pulled onto that page. And this allows them to dynamically have a lot of information coming into particular places on the site without the requirement for them to go and have to physically mirror content or duplicate it into those particular sections. So we're going to have a quick look at how exactly that's done within Site Manager and how exactly it works. So I'm going to try and skip out and go into their Site Manager itself. Trackpad is working. Let's check out it for you. It's not even connected. It works with the mouse connected. Okay, so within Site Manager, and I'm going to skip over to Northwestern Site Manager and show you exactly how they are using it, the output. So I think my network is going. Okay, so within their slide I was talking about, they have the news sections. So we see down here is the actual live site. The URL is on the top of the page, nwhealth.edu, if anybody wants to follow me along. And these are categorized and pulled in using the navigation object keyword search into those sections. So within Site Manager itself, we're going to have a look and see exactly how it's configured very quickly, just to see that there's not a huge pile required to set it up. So if I pop into Site Manager, go into my navigation objects. Okay, so I'm going to pop directly into the navigation objects. Okay, so in this instance, what we've done is we've actually subdivided those 4 separate news sections in the community into 4 categories, and this just allows for further modifications to it, or if they want to specify it down. So essentially all that you need to do to set up this template, or this navigation object, is create it. You pick the section where it gets its name from, the template that provides it with the name, and then you can see here that the 2 template elements that it brings it in from. You pick the section where your news exists, and then you have a particular type of sort order that can be last modified date, A to Z, Z to A, and there's a future update coming soon where you'll be able to specify a template element to sort it by. So essentially there's very few features need to be picked, and then what will happen is going forward dynamically, those pieces of information will be brought into Site Manager. The idea as well, coming back to what was talked about earlier as regards mobile, is that you will be able to tag news, for example, as mobile news or something you want on the mobile site. And in that way, you could specify those news stories, and those will then be pulled in to your mobile site without having to mirror or duplicate news into those sections. So that essentially is keywords. I said it's not wholly new to the product, but it's not as utilized as we would like. And it's something that I said that there's documentation on it here. I'll be expanding on the presentation, and it's something that can be used, I think, to just more dynamically move content throughout your site. The second item I'm going to look at today is pagination. Again, it's something that's used not as much as I'd like. Skip through slides. And the idea of pagination is that it's mostly used on pages where you have multiple pieces of content outputting on the same page, but you want to be able to split them out over multiple pages so you get a far more aesthetically pleasing view for your client. In this instance, what we have are course information descriptions. Those are actually coming from Aggresso. We brought in using the data object in Site Manager, parsed, displayed out in this type of fashion, and then down the bottom you can see that the browse functionality exists so that you can click through your pages to go to other iterations of that. So I'll just quickly show you how that looks on the live site. Let's see here. So this information is coming using the data object in Aggresso, so this is clickable through then, all using the same template element, and then at publish it's divided up into multiple pages using the pagination navigation object. So this feature is in the product, so it's not overly used, but it's very handy. It can be used for staff listings, as they've also done here, course description listings, anywhere where you have lots of content that's all in the same section, but where you don't want to load the page and there's just multitudes and multitudes of information all in the same line. And you can specify, for example, in this instance we put browse page down the bottom of the page, but there's no reason why you can't put it on top or in any other way. You can also format this to look in whatever way you want, and I'm just going to show you within the navigation object itself how you would configure and set up something like pagination. So again, it has its own name, so it's just called pagination. And you can see that it's actually simpler. You simply specify the template you want to use, the number of pieces of content you want to put on every particular page. It's something usually when you're building this to begin with, you put a small number in so you can see exactly working. And then the maximum number of pieces you want to display in total. It could also be handy for news items, for example, if you want 3 pages of news and you don't want it to exceed, for example, 12 items in total, you can use that function there. Again, you just tell it exactly where you wanted to find the content from. In this instance, we wanted to go to course descriptions and branch down for all the subsequent layers. Search hidden sections, and then you simply put your formatting for before and after, and then in between the pagination. And that divides up. You obviously then select an alternative formatter, and that brings in the content. So you can see this is a very quick way of getting lots and lots of pieces of information within Site Manager to display in a far more readable format than if you can imagine in this instance, there's 10 pages of content and they would all be underneath each other. So this is in the product. Both these items they've been there for a while, but they're not as used as I do. That's me.
Next up is Barry Buckle, and he's a software engineer in the R&D department, and he's going to be talking to us about exporting and importing bundles with Site Manager.
So in Site Manager, it is possible to export and import projects in Site Manager. These are XML format. So what kind of objects can we export and import? So we use styles, templates, navigations, workflows, lists, and channels. And it's also possible to use this to export sections and pieces of content. And to be able to do this, you need to be an administrator, and you also need to have, because these files are exported on the Site Manager server, you need to have some kind of access to the server to be able to manipulate the files. So, why is this useful? Well, in a lot of instances, people are creating new sites, or they have sites already with templates in them that they want to make similar templates. It's not possible to copy templates. So what you can do is you can export that template out that's similar to the one you want to make and import it back in, It has all its formatters, all the elements, and then you can manipulate that template to the new template that you want. So it's kind of useful. Similar for navigation objects, you can export them out. If you want to make one that's kind of similar, and then import it back in again. And then you can change if there's paths or whatever in it. And that makes it much easier. And also styles, you can export out styles. And when you export out a style, it'll export out all the navigation objects in the style and all the media. And then when you import it back in again, you have a brand new style with brand new references to new navigation objects and new media, and then you can manipulate that. And so obviously that would be useful. You can also use it, some people have test servers and they have live servers. So what you can do is you can export these objects in a test server, then bring them across to your live server and import them. So obviously a lot of people have, the normal way to do this is to manually recreate your objects on the live server based on what you see on the test server. But this way you can actually bring the whole lot in, and it's much easier, it makes much more sense. And then you can also use it just to simply back up your templates or your navigation objects or your styles. So I'll just do a simple demonstration now. I'm going to export a template from Site Manager and then import it back in again. Now the thing with templates need to have unique names. So when I import this one back in, it will have a number on the end of it. But obviously this is XML, so you can actually go in and edit the XML, give it a new name, and import it in and a new name. It won't have a number on the end of it. And you can also, because it's XML, you can edit any of the properties, the size, or any of the properties within the file. Just give it a second. Theme here from Daniel. We want to see this. So we just go to the export functionality. So we're going to export a content template. And what I'm going to do is so page without heading. I'm going to have to put in a path into the Site Manager server that I've created beforehand, that I've permission to write to. And just click submit. I spelled it wrong. Click submit, and I've exported it. And so if we go to look at the content templates that exist already, under the sample data group, there should be page without heading template. Okay, only one. So if I go back and go to import, put in the path that I put in for the export. I just choose the sample data group, section work. And click submit. So if we go back into the content templates, you can see there's a page without a heading with a 0 over it, because it's got the same name. Now if we go in and edit that, it'll have all the same elements. And it'll also have the formatters. One in this case. Okay. So that'll save a lot of manual work. Now in subsequent versions, it should be possible to of Style Manager 7.2, should be possible to actually export a whole branch of a slide structure that includes all the content, the templates and the hierarchy, and then import it somewhere else. So that possibly will be useful for a lot of people if they want to move like whole chunks of content and between different servers or different installations of Style Manager. And that's me.
Next up is Barry Flannery, and he is a senior client support engineer with the client support team. He's doing two sections, so he's going to be doing multiple media formatters and bulk manipulation of content.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is going to be fairly short and sweet, but it's something that's going to make your lives a lot easier and save you a lot of time, and that's bulk manipulation of content within your sections. I'm great with PowerPoint. Space bar. Let's do it this way. Right, you didn't see that bit at the bottom there. So, back in the old days, you had a bunch of content in your section. You might have 100 e-forms, anything along those lines. You want to move some of them into a different section, you have to do it one at a time. So if you wanted to move 50 of those 100 items, select your item, select move, select where you wanted to do it, and then repeat that 50 times. This obviously took a very long time to do. But now, introduced with Site Manager 7.1.2, you can do bulk content manipulation. This allows you to mirror, duplicate, move, and delete any content within a section. These operations are available to anyone who has access rights to those sections. But if you want to move, duplicate, you need to make sure that you have access rights on the section you're going to move them into as well. And this is what it looks like. You have some little tick boxes that run down the side of your content. Select the ones you want and use the options in the menu. So let's try that out. Let's not use Northwestern Health Sciences.
Daniel, you did ask them if we could use their site.
They might get upset if we moved half their website around and forth and randomly. Yeah, let's go. So, just as a quick example, I earlier made this e-form section, and it's got 12 pieces of content in it. So as I said before, if I wanted to move 6 of these items somewhere else, I have to do them all individually, but now I can just pick and match as I go. And you'll see what's happened. These options here have all grayed out, so I can't use the individual options any longer. I can only use the bulk options, which come down at the bottom. So we'll take those forward, and what we'll do is mirror them into some other section. And let's try this courses section. And fine, in they go. So, oops, we mirrored them into the wrong section. Let's delete them. Thankfully, we can now bulk delete as well. We don't need to go through them one by one. Same as before, tick the boxes. And then obviously select delete from the menu. And because these are mirrored, it's asking me whether I want to delete all of the content or just the ones that are in this exact section. So I'm just going to remove from the section. And then one last thing I want to show you. If you have a piece of content and you try and duplicate it back into the section it originated from, you get a name clash. So if I try to move eForm submission 1 back into this section, I already have eForm submission 1, which is going to cause a bit of a problem. So what Site Manager does is it asks you to rename your content, and it will still let you do this when you're doing it en masse. So we'll take those 3 pieces of content, and we'll both duplicate, and we'll go right back into the same section that we came from. And as you'll see, it gives us the option to put the new names. So I'm just going to put 2 at the end of these. So if I try and type anything more complicated, I'll make a message. So now we should have 15 or so pieces of content in this section. We should see my new ones down the bottom, which come in as pending since they're newly duplicated pieces of content. And that's it.
How do you get 242 now?
How did I what now?
Didn't you end up at 242?
Yes, I did. You can still keep your names duplicated. It's just giving you the option to change it if you so wish. It's not a must. So you can have 100 pieces of content in there, all with the same name if you wanted to. It just makes it a little bit difficult to figure out which one you want. So that's both move. And we'll move on to number 2. And this one's quite cool. This is going to make life easier mostly for admins rather than end users, but you don't have to worry about your end users doing something that they probably have done to you in the past, and that's uploading something into the media library as the wrong type. Then they try and use it, and they wonder what the heck's happening, why am I getting a link instead of an image, or why am I getting an image where I want a link. So, as before, what we did in the past, when you added your item into the media library, you had to select what it was. So if you're adding a CSS file, you kind of had to tell it it was a CSS file, or if it was an image, tell it it's an image. And if you wanted to reuse these content items multiple times, you had to upload them, one for each time you wanted to use it with that specific formatter, or you could upload them all as media path and then build your HTML around it. But again, this was time consuming. So with Site Manager 7.1.1, we gave you the ability to decide which formatter you want to use with your media item when you're outputting it. And the syntax is there on your screen. Very simple. We just added the formatter down at the bottom, and in there you put whichever valid formatter you want to use. If you're using the invalid formatter, it defaults back to the original. So one of our clients, the University of Lincoln, uses this on their homepage. So you can see I've highlighted the boxes down towards the bottom right. These items are in their media library. They're available to use any way they like, but they're up as /image, or sorry, as the image type in the media library. If they tried to use those right there on the homepage, what would happen is they'd get the image source inside that image source that you can see at the top. So what we've done is we've used the path formatter, which just outputs the path of the image. And the reason they wanted to do this was so they could add the class banner content box image around it, but still leave the image available for use anywhere else in their system. So I've prepared another slightly more silly looking example of this. And that's using our own sample data. So we're going to see 3 things. You're going to see something similar to Lincoln, where on the left-hand side of the screen, I've made a box that I'm using one of the regular images from the media library as the background of within my CSS, the Lightbox gallery, and then regular content in TinyMCE, where I just drag in one of the images from the media library. And this is what it's going to look like. So you can see the path formatter is going to be used on the left, the gallery formatter at the top, and then the regular image underneath. So let me jump back into Site Manager. And the section this all comes from is formatters. And bear with me while I grab the publish page for this. So here's the page live. What we'll start off with is the gallery. So that's our gallery start formatter. I already have 3 images in there, and I want to add a new one. But what I'm going to do is add that image into the media library as a regular image type, and then use the gallery formatter on it. So jump into the media library. I'm going to add a new photo, so we already have a selection here, but anyone who knows me in the office is pretty aware of the fact that I do like roller coasters, so I decided let's go for a roller coaster image. Unfortunately, I have to find it. And there it is. Anyone who's been to Florida might recognize it. So, I'll call it roller coaster. Just a little slash. So that's going into the media library just as a regular image type, which is perfect if you want to add it into your content using TinyMCE, but not so good if you wanted to use it elsewhere. But with this new functionality, you can now do that. So if I go back to my formatter section, You'll see that I have a new template created in the system, which I've called the lightbox, or lightbox image. So we're going to add a new piece of content using that template. And in this template, we just select the item from the media library as normal. And we'll give it a name, or C. I'm just going to publish this out so you can see it live. Actually, I'm not. Let's do something else first. And maybe it's just bounce it up to the top, so it's the very first thing we have. If you weren't worried, you can do that. You can move your content around with that as well. So that goes the sample slide. Jump back in here. There we go, it's getting worried there. Firefox is trying to defeat me. So there's my image, and it comes up as a lightbox using the gallery formatter. I can show you that formatter and how we do it. In our template. What we're doing is just outputting that as standard. But we're choosing this lightbox start formatter, which is a media formatter I've already created in the media library. And I'll very quickly show you that. So it's not more of yours to yours. And there it is down the bottom. It's just a regular media formatter, but we're using it on the fly. Similarly for the CSS file, where you saw that on the right-hand side, using the box in the background. Something a little bit cooler in that, which you may not also be aware of. And that is the fact that you can now embed T4 tags inside your CSS, inside your JavaScript, when they're sitting in the media library, which is what I've done here. Scroll down to the bottom. Here's what I've defined from my left-hand box, and we're using the path formatter on that. So we put the same images in, all as image, but we're using them in multiple different ways on the output side. So hopefully that'll save you time when your authors are going, well, why is my image a link? Why isn't it an image? I really wanted an image. So now you don't need to worry about it. They can just add them on as normal, and away you go. And that's it.
Thanks, Barry. So, would you hire or fire Barry? So next up is Mark Howard, and he's going to be talking about integrating social media.
So people really love to share, and a great way to allow them to share is to integrate the Facebook, the Twitter tweet button, or the Google +1 button. And what this allows you to do is, on any page, you can click the like button and it will put your website into their timeline. And I'm going to show an easy example of how to do this really quick with site management. So, I'll go first. So first of all, I need to create a navigation object. I've created a group called social media, so we create a navigation object for that. And this is to output the section path. So it's section details. I leave everything with the default values, and I'll change it to the sort of section path, and I'll call this output section path. And so each of the social networking tools provide a tool to generate the code for the light bulbs. And first one I'll show you is the Facebook. And how you do this is just click on get code. And this generates the code for the light bulb. And then create a new navigation or a new content template. I'll call this Facebook. It doesn't need any elements. And just copy and paste the code from Facebook. And I'm just going to amend the URL and add in one feature tag. Just grab the URL. Format. Then just want to enable the content template on the section. I'll just choose the rotation section. It's there, Facebook logo. I'll rotate that. And I just need to add content to that section. There's that. I'll call it my Facebook button. You're going to preview the section. And there's the Facebook link. When I press like, it'll put the website address and then the section path into the end user's Facebook stream. And it'll give you a count of how many people have liked that page as well. So the next one I'm going to show you is the Twitter tweet button. It's very similar. So I'll just put in. Should generate the photo. Or just paste it. Throw it into the content template. Create your own called Twitter book. I'll add one element called username. And this is who to an afterthought when you click on the tweet book. Then enable this template on the section. And then I'll copy using Twitter template. I'll follow on Twitter. I'll put in the app name. Move on to the Google. It's very straightforward. When you don't have the URL, then it automatically uses the URL that the button is on. So it will work in full text format as well. add some content using the Google Form. There's Google. So that's what it looks like inside the social network screen on the end user when they press away. That's it. Thank you.
So next up we have Brian Hogan. He's a pre-sales consultant and he's going to demonstrate the client-side core search.
The whole idea behind this is it's a client-side search. So it's a search for a very small number of records, and it's usually the thing that a site is trying to sell. So for universities, it would be a course. For commercial websites, it would be a product. For other sites, possibly the public service sector, would be a service. So why I'm doing this? Because you have such a small number of courses or records or whatever, you don't need a search engine. So if you don't have the money in your pocket to buy a search engine, you don't need to. Everything is client-side, it's in the DMZ, and everything is managed with Site Manager. And you can make something look very, very nice with all the jQuery UI libraries and all that kind of stuff that are out there. So where would you use this? Like I said, for higher education, courses or people or research documents, that kind of thing. For local government places, events, people, again, and commercial website, a product list. So what do you need? It's very simple, and if I can do this, anyone can do it. It's a simple content template, or it can be as advanced as you like. But it's a normal content template. There's nothing added. There's nothing extra. There's one navigation object and the jQuery UI library. So technically, how it works is we export, in this case, a JSON array. So for those of you who don't know what it is, it's just a string of letters and words. Properly formatted. You could use a HTML table, or you could use XML. It's really, really up to you. So you use jQuery to actually search this array. It's a tiny drop of JavaScript. It's a cut and paste. Like I said, if I can do this, then anybody can do it. And then your list of results will link off to a full text version of your course, or your product, or your service, or wherever you want it to go, essentially. So I'm going to jump in. Here we go. On the actual site, it looks like this. Let me tidy this up a little bit. And I think I might have closed it. Yeah, well done. So I chose courses because I had an example already done, so it was nice and easy to just copy across. Essentially, I have 3 courses: accounting, biology, and management or mathematics, or something like that. So when you click through on these, you're brought to your full text version of your item, whatever it may be. And it's kind of that simple. So it took me half an hour to do this. And it's documented on the extranet of how to do this, and all the code is there, the links to the libraries you need, all that kind of stuff. Within Site Manager, it's very, 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 very simple. And I'll just go through it very, very quickly. Hands up who likes Guinness, by the way. Come on, there's more people than that. Really? I'll drink yours then, baby. So what we have a simple content template called, in this case, courses. course with two formatters. So the full text formatter and the text HTML formatter. Full text formatter is your full page, nice and simple, you can style it any way you like. And in my case, I'm using a text HTML formatter to spit out a JSON array. That's all it does. So with a label, that's what you see in your list. And then the second one is a link to the full text version of whatever you're searching. Then that's all of that takes all of those arrays are spit out to a hidden section. Consequently, it was the section that Barry chose to do a bulk move into. So if you know your JSON, that would have completely exploded my little presentation. So I had to double check that first. So a section hidden from navigation and locked down, secure, so that only I can get to it next time. So all of that, there's a long JSON array in that section. I'll show you what it looks like on the page. But it won't be that neat because I'm not hired to do any web development. It's a small array, it looks like that. So you have your label and your link to your full text of your item. And that's pretty much it. I can go through it in more detail with anybody else later at the 3 machines outside there if you want to take a look. And if you don't have any questions, we'll leave the questions to later. So thanks for your time.
So next up is Deirdre Bouillon, and she's going to demo Save as Draft or section and publish on.
So as most of you are used to the T44U setup, you'll know that we do have focus groups every year, which are taking place tomorrow afternoon. And during the focus groups, we try and get your feedback from you who are actually our users. Based on the feedback we got last year during the focus groups, we implemented some of the features that we actually wanted. And I'm going to just show you 3 of those features that I've chosen for today, which are Publish Now, Save as Draft, and Content Mirroring. And I believe these 3 features actually enhance the end user experience. So I kind of want to point out to those people maybe not so interested in the technical side of things, but some new features for the actual users. Okay, so I'm going to take you through Publish or Save as Draft first of all. So I'm just going to go into Site Manager. Now, the Save as Draft feature is, I suppose, one feature from my experience in training that a lot of people were looking for. Before the Save as Draft option, content had to be added, which then put it into stages of pay, which meant it automatically went in for approval. Therefore, content authors who are writing content could actually end up with their content approved and published before the content is actually ready to go live. So the Save as Draft feature allows you to put the content on hold until you're actually ready for that content to be approved and published. So I'm going to show you how that works. So I've got a piece of content in here, I'm just going to modify the content. Okay. So I'm just going to add another sentence here. Okay, so you can see here when we have the update button, there's actually a downward arrow here, and that's where we have the additional features. So you can see here I have an option to save as draft, so I'm going to select save as draft because I'm not ready for this content to go live. And you'll notice here when I save it that the state is actually as draft. That means that if there's a workflow enabled on this section or a workflow enabled on the content template, this piece of content is not going to enter into that workflow. Therefore, there's no risk of the content actually being approved and published. If we go into the content and approved content screen, you can see the content is all about us. You can see that it's not actually on the list. So I feel this would make end users' life a lot easier because they do have full control over when it's actually going to move on to the next stage. This feature doesn't need to be enabled, so it's enabled by default in version 7 and the particular build that it came out in. Secondly, I'm going to show you the Publish Now feature. And the Publish Now feature allows you to publish a page or a section on demand. So I'm going to take the same piece of content that I have here. I'm going to modify the content. Okay. Now the content is in a draft status, but I'm going to select Publish Now from the drop-down. Select the channel that you want to publish it in. So if there's a default channel set, it will just go straight into that one. And what the user is going to see here is that actual piece of content published on screen. This particular feature is available for moderators, power users and administrators, and the administrator has full control over who they actually enable it for. So you can lock it out, hide it for certain users if you wish to do so. So you can see the publish is complete. Another huge advantage to this is that you don't need to publish your entire site or have micro-channels set up based on what you would predict would be the most sections that we publish most often. So you're giving the control to the end user to actually publish their content immediately. Also, with the Publish Now feature, you can actually publish a section as well. So I'll show you how that works. So if I take this section here, and I'm just going to modify the section. Select Publish Now. Select the channel. And obviously the difference between the Publish Now and the section and the channel is that when you publish the section, it will publish everything in that section. So if there's 3 or 4 pieces of content, they're all going to be published immediately. If you publish a piece of content, it's just going to publish that one piece of content. So you can be as specific as you want to be. Finally, then I'm going to show you a feature which is mirror sections. Most of you are probably familiar with mirroring content. So what we've introduced now based on your feedback is also the facility to actually mirror a section of the site structure. So I've just set up the section here, and I'm going to mirror this section into the mirror target here. So select mirror branch. Select the section that I want to mirror it under. Here now is first of all the mirrored source has this icon beside it which indicates it has been mirrored, and also the subsection has that icon as well to indicate that's been mirrored. Now this is a feature that you can enable in the hierarchy handler, and you also have control over the fact that if somebody creates a subsection below this, you can decide whether that's going to be mirrored into the target also. So I'll show you how that works. So if I go to add section. So I'm just going to modify this section. If you scroll across to the tab, you have a tab here called Mirrored Sections. Okay. Sorry, I'll just do that again. Let's add a subsection. So before I add the section, I'm going to go across to the Mirrored Sections. And here allows me to enable or disable whether I want to mirror this section or not. And that particular feature can be enabled or disabled regardless of whether you have mirror enabled or not. Well, sorry, once you have mirror enabled, you can decide whether you want this feature to be there or not. And the same works for the content. So when you're adding content to a mirrored section, before you add it, you can choose whether you want to also mirror it into the destination as well. Okay.
I have a question about the public disabled rather than publish now.
Yeah.
If a piece of content is in draft status, you can still publish it out to the server.
Well, you can once you're clicking publish now, but if you publish the channel, like directly, if you go to content and publish channels, that's not going to publish it. But when you click publish now from the drop down, that fast tracks the item through approval and onto publish.
So our users could bypass approval just by pressing publish now.
If you have publish now enabled, so you don't have to enable publish now.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I just have a question about the mirror section. If you've mirrored your section into the target, and then you created a new section in your original, let's say you mirrored your section into a subsite that somebody else has control over. If they create a subsection in the mirrored section, does that create another subsection up above?
Yeah, so it works the same way as the content does. So
And can you disable that?
well, the only way you can disable it is if, well, you can turn off, basically it has allowed non-mirrored sections. So if you don't enable that option, when they create a new section, it's going to just mirror automatically. But if you enable that option, they'll have control whether they want to mirror it or not.
Because in some ways what you'd like to do
There's
is...
clarification from the audience here. With the actual mirrored section, in the destination, everything is actually read-only. So it's a read-only copy that you have on different parts of the site. And you've kind of that single source that can be modified based on the access control rules in the source section.